Hi everyone, it's Stan again. It's been a little bit since I did my last video, and I promised to do more. There's a lot of topics I could do, but the one that just been pops up more often than not is I call this one the top 3 things most mercury toxic people do not understand. In reality, I try to do 3, and I really couldn't narrow it down to 3. Okay. And then what I'm getting at is I'm on a lot of health groups. I get approached by a lot of people. I get people message me, for help because they must see that I might kind of know what I'm talking about when I make a comment in a group. And I see a lot of people just totally off track on certain basic things. And that's all I try to do every day in these groups is just point people back in a direction. I don't try to twist their arms and say it's got to be this way because at the end of the day, there's no experts really on this stuff. So let me get into this a little bit. I mean, that's the basis of this video. This information here in the yellow is what I start every video with. You could pause it and read it, and those are key things you should do before you do anything and understand before you do anything. I talk about that in these top 3 things. It's really more like top 20, and I didn't even include them all. So here's some links you could look at. Very interesting about the EPA and FDA and whatnot. So let me get into the video. I'm already a minute and a half into this, so I don't like to waste too much time. So like I mentioned, I've been at least 7 years in various health groups doing a lot of research just by reading and comparing people's symptoms and results. People make jokes about being a YouTube knowledgeable person. Well, you can get a lot of information from hundreds and thousands of comments and posts and opinions and discussions with people, maybe even more than a doctor, okay? Especially when you're open-minded, where doctors today have to follow some protocol training they learned in school, okay, which often doesn't include toxicity very well. I see a lot of people try to help, but in my opinion, they're either just passing along what they've read somewhere else with really no personal experience, which is very key, or they don't realize we are all different, so what works for them or works for one may not work for others in the same way or in the same time based on your levels. So they might have personal experience, but they didn't do enough research like I'm talking about to know that, wow, geez, everything that worked for them probably wouldn't work for somebody else in exactly the same way, okay? So I try to just point that out to people and get them in a better direction. So number 2, what are the top 3? There's just way too many things I try to caution people on. There might be 3, but let's go through it and you can decide for yourself. One of the top things is when people talk about their levels, okay? In my opinion, there are no safe levels of any toxin, any heavy metal. Everyone's going out getting testing and reviewing data and all that kind of stuff. And the reason I say there's no safe levels is because all my levels, when I did a test by a hair test, were low. Even with a forced chelation, the urine challenge test, which are not recommended, even when I did that, my levels weren't extremely high. And that's forcing it out of you kind of thing. So there's a lot of people out there with low levels. When all of us start getting exposed, we have a certain level, which might not even be detectable, but we're already exposed, and even that low level can cause damage over time. My first chelation doctor strongly felt low levels were worse than high levels. Dr. Boyd Haley has said that the mix of levels and the levels of the levels, no one can predict the outcome. So anybody out there that's analyzing levels, I would say at best you're putting yourself in some ballpark understanding, but be very careful with levels. I don't know how many people I've seen say, my levels are fine. My levels on mercury are fine. And I'll write back and say, what were your levels? Oh, where they were this. I said, how do you know that they're fine? Based on what? Do you have symptoms? Yes. Okay, then where do you think the symptoms are coming from? We'll talk about more on that as I get through this. The other thing on number 4, which really upsets me more than anything else, is the system gets us all to think about levels and data. Like, we're consumed with data. We got to go out and get a test. That's the way society works. That's the way everything works. And that's how you're going to determine if you're toxic or not. Again, like I'm talking here, that can throw people way off track. What if the safe level of a toxin is 10 and you're at 9.9? Are you okay? Okay, well, what number is okay? Is it 9.8? Is it 5? Is it 1? And it's individualistic for each of us, too. Okay, so that's why I go back to 0 is the best level, right? Term somebody used years ago, analysis paralysis. You can get so hung up in all the data and all the analysis that you don't end up doing it. You don't know which way to go. My background is engineering, and I can tell you that the data is not the end all. I mean, I don't want to get into the details, but there's so many ways data is manipulated and twisted and presented in a way to present an outcome that somebody would want it to be, etc. That's why I say the levels that we get tested for are kind of irrelevant. If you have symptoms, you're sick, and it's probably from toxins. The levels they say are safe is probably also not to the best of our health outcome, right? Number 5, hair test can show low levels, which may mean we aren't excreting well. It's not necessarily that our levels are low. My levels were all low, okay? What my levels are does not mean you would have similar symptoms if you had the same levels, okay? There's no direct correlation necessarily between people. If my level's a 5 and yours is a 5, I could be really, really sick. You could be like hardly feeling anything, and vice versa. Number 7, the blood test is not the way to test. It will only show if you had recent exposure. So if you got exposed, the first place it ends up is in your blood, because your body's trying to remove the exposure, and it's filtering your blood through your kidneys and liver and then out your digestive system. That's the kind of the way it works. So if you do have high levels in your blood, that's not good, because you got recent exposure. You're being exposed, and your body's seeing it that way. You can have low levels in your blood and reasonable levels in your hair test. That's how my tests were. My blood test was fine. Hair test showed I'm full of like 11 metals. That was an eye-opener for me. That's how I learned and proved this to myself. Okay. MTHFR, you can look up, Google that. It's a genetic thing. Many people overlook this. Many get harmed by chelating without addressing MTHFR. It's one of the detox pathways. It's related to your B vitamins. Your body does not methylate well. Mercury also causes an inability to methylate, so you can, like, what is it, the chicken or the egg? Think about that a little bit. That's one of the top 3, I would say. When anybody approaches me, I say, did you get your amalgams removed, yes or no? Did you check for MTHFR? And most of the time, people are trying to detox with amalgams in, and most of them don't know what MTHFR is. So that's a starting point, no matter what you've been doing. Because I know too many people with MTHFR that have tried chelating, and they get messed up. They've gotten messed up. You don't want to hurt yourself, okay? Number 9, again, I kind of just talked about that, but the basic steps to detox. Number 1, remove the exposure, address the pathways, and then see what your body can do. Maybe naturally you're going to start improving. In my case, when I removed my amalgams and I was addressing MTHFR, I dumped mercury like crazy, okay? And I'll talk about that in a second. Number 10, fish and seafood. Yes, you can get toxic from simply eating too much seafood. Tuna and sardines, they say, are maybe more full of mercury just because of the way they are in the water system and their ability to detox. I reacted to fish oil supplements, trace mercury in fish oil supplements. Every morning I took my fish oil. I felt horrible for several hours. I was like, what in the world's going on? Finally, somebody told me, careful on your supplements, look into your trace ingredients in your supplements. All that stuff can affect us, especially if we're thiol intolerant. It's another topic. Mercury holds other metals in. If you remove the mercury, other things start coming out of you. In particular, aluminum is a big one. So in your detox pattern or path or schedule or whatever you're coming up with there, you got all these metals in you. Where do I start? Mercury, to me, is just ruthless. And somebody else may feel differently, whatever, but I would start with mercury. If you even have low levels of mercury and high levels of everything else, it could very well be related to the fact that mercury holds other things in. Number 12, dump phase. After all your exposures removed, after your last amalgam is removed, you should dump. A lot of people say they don't. Somebody approached me just the other day. They say they feel horrible all of a sudden. I said, have you removed all your amalgams? Yes. I said, is it about 4 to 8 weeks after? Yes. And they said, thank you very much. That might explain how I'm feeling. I said, well, get ready for much, much worse, and it might be overwhelming because people just don't understand how bad this dump can be. It's a good thing, but it's tough. It's a rough time. Specks, tiny specks could be left in your mouth, and you won't detox. If that presence of mercury is there, your body won't dump. I know for a fact that one person went to like 5 dentists till finally one of them took the time and saw she had a speck in her mouth. She was chelating for years with no results and many side effects and feeling horrible. And finally, when she removed the speck, she started to dump. So I don't know how many people have told me, oh, my dentist checked. I went to 2 dentists. They all checked. Nothing's there. I said, well, go to the 3rd one. Something's stopping you from detoxing. Like keep digging. Chelation, in my opinion, no way to do this chelation without causing some amount of redistribution. Redistribution is what we all try to not do and stay away from. Once you start moving stuff around inside you in an uncontrolled way, there's no telling where it's going to go and what combination of issues it's going to cause you. So I did IV chelation. Not knowing this 20-some years ago, I ended up with chronic kidney disease down the road. Was it related? I don't know. But I would never do IV again. I've had people on IV glutathione approach me. They were in horrible condition. I asked them what were they doing. They told me. I said, stop the IV right away. They argue with me because their doctor said that they were getting better on it. I said, well, you sure don't seem to be getting better. If I were you, I would stop and give it a few days, see what happens. Everyone that stopped, within a couple of days, they were fine again. I got to talk fast because I'm getting up to my 15-minute or so point. I'm not sure how long I have. Number 16, no offense, but doctors mostly have no idea how we feel. Try to find a doctor who is toxic themselves. Otherwise, they only know what they read or learn from their patients or how much involvement they get. This is most of us learn from each other because we feel how it feels to be toxic, and it's almost crazy to describe sometimes the symptoms we go through. All illness and disease can be a root cause from toxins. I'm seeing more and more and more on the media people talking this way. I've said it for years, and I strongly believe that. If you grasp that basic concept, very good chance you're going to get well a lot faster than if you don't grasp that. If you keep looking for viruses and all this other disease names they come out with every other day as a new disease, you're going to miss the boat. MTHFR is genetic, but mercury causes the same issues. So which is it? Think about that. Mercury can cause mental, physical, emotional symptoms, all at various degrees of discomfort. We're all different. There's no way to look up what you're going to get when you get exposed to whatever level of mercury. Having amalgams and no symptoms does not mean you won't or aren't solely being poisoned. It can hit hard all of a sudden down the road, but it was building for years. I don't know if I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to cut this off. I hope all this stuff was helpful. I read it fast. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know how much time I have. So, hope this was helpful. Please leave like and comment with your thoughts, because if you have other ideas of what the top 3 should be, let me know. Thank you very much.